Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 226, The Direction of Extraordinary Level and Advancement. The evolution is successful. Lu Ren was just about to congratulate him when a strong wind came right at him, filling his mouth. He made a whew sound. What is going on? It's going to break through to the extraordinary level. Master Yao said. Heavenly King Wu's brows twitched. In just over a year, it broke through to become an extraordinary level while evolving. In that case, its potential is already comparable to the pseudo-monarch pathway? Wait. The higher the potential, the more spiritual energy one needs to absorb to break through. He looked at Su Hao. How much spiritual jade did you prepare? As Heavenly King Wu spoke, he had already summoned the trading puppet and was about to let it make a trip to transport spiritual jades. But he heard Su Hao say, "Senior, don't worry. To be cautious, I've already prepared wood element spiritual jades worth 1,000 credits. Anyway, spiritual jades are universal resources, it's not a waste to stockpile some. 1,000 credits. 500 pounds of spiritual jade." He was being too cautious. Heavenly King Wu's mouth twitched. Lu Ren shed tears of poverty. The spiritual jades worth 1,000 credits had long been buried by Su Hao around the arena. The spiritual jades absorbed during the evolution ritual were at most 10 to 20 pounds. At this point, the spiritual force in the spiritual jade was extracted by Butterfly. Countless light dots gathered into green streams and flowed into its body. But even so, the surrounding spiritual energy still flocked and gathered. 100 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters. The range of the impact became wider and wider, and spiritual energy brought about waves of howling wind. It formed a spiritual energy cyclone, with Butterfly in the center. Its aura gradually rose, and invisible pressure dissipated. Be it the lava dragon turtle, the tide-calling spring sprite, or the electric bear, they were all a little breathless. Butterfly instinctively incorporated mental shock into the extraordinary pressure, which was even more shocking. Lu Ren and the others were affected. Protection barriers appeared around their bodies. The few of them didn't dare to stay any longer and left one after another. Mirror Forest, outside the sealed area. Many students and sprites looked towards the south, their mouths gradually widening. Too strong. Bai Hongjin's eyes widened. He sensed the fear coming from the polar nine tails. Despite being so far away, the pressure still affected my nine tails. What exactly is that sprite? How strong is it? As expected of instructor's sprite. No, it's more than that. He was from the sprite trainer Bai family and had extraordinary knowledge. Such a big commotion and such a strong aura, it's not an ordinary extraordinary level. Perhaps it's the ace sprite of a second level or first level instructor. I wonder if the Polar Nine Tails can possess such strong power in 3 years. He looked at Polar Nine Tails. Instantly, his fighting spirit was invigorated. He felt that he couldn't keep putting his energy on Su Hao. Su Hao was strong, but he was just a student after all. He should treat his instructors and professors as opponents and advance with the Heavenly King level as his goal. Only then could he become a real expert. Bai Hongzhen felt like he was reborn. Whoosh! Strong whines howled in the sealed area. Su Hao hid behind the big fat bear and the dumb unicorn. He half squatted and looked towards the huge cyclone. He could only vaguely see Butterfly's figure. A few moments later, the cyclone slowly eased. He saw 3 shiny round orbs surrounding Butterfly, spinning rapidly. It was the spiritual orbs. But it was no longer the size of a glass bead, but the size of a table tennis ball. The accessory became bigger along with Butterfly. The howling wind had already calmed down. Butterfly's closed eyes slowly opened. Substantive spirit power flashed across its eyes like a dazzling light. Gurgle, gurgle. Its crisp voice spread, bringing with it a calming power. The lava dragon turtle and the other sprites, who were originally trembling, immediately felt relieved. Butterfly flapped its wings and spun 2 rounds on the spot. Then, it looked at the remaining materials on the ground. Psychic power enveloped them and packed them all up. They flew dozens of meters away into the suitcase hugged by the big fat bear. It danced happily for a while, wanting to return to the familiar throne, but suddenly paused. Gurgle. Why did Suhao's head become so small? Gurgle. It fell into deep thought. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, Butterfly's figure slowly became hazy and illusionary. Then, under Suhao's gaze, Butterfly, which was about 1.2 meters tall, actually kept shrinking to a height similar to the original Reverie butterfly form. It turned into a palm-sized sprite, and it flew 1 round before landing on top of his head. Gurgle, it called out. It said that it had returned to its throne. Seeing this scene, the flaming spirit crow was stunned. Its gaze moved down and glanced at Suhao, especially at Suhao's shoulder. It raised its leg a little restlessly. Then, Suhao looked over. He used the pressure of a sprite trainer. Stare. What do you want? Squawk 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 squawk. Suhao reached out and said no. Flaming spirit crow squatted in a corner and went into a daze. How do you plan to name the evolved form of Reverie butterfly? Suhao pretended to think for a moment. Let's call it Butterfly Fairy. It's pretty suitable. Master Yao's gaze was burning with desire to know. Is it also an ability in its Butterfly Fairy form to shrink freely? Well, not exactly. Suhao glanced at Butterfly on top of his head. He was also surprised. Theoretically, the Butterfly Fairy form only had an additional illusion attribute when compared to the Reverie butterfly form. That should be illusionary transformation. In order to stay above my head, Butterfly developed a new usage of illusion changes in a short period of time. Although it's not a special posture, and you have to return to your original form in battle, but Suhao didn't know whether to remain silent. He should still say awesome. He opened the interface. Sprite, Butterfly Fairy, Extraordinary. Characteristics, Dreams. Attributes, Wood Illusion. Cultivation Plan, omitted, to be upgraded. Unique Skill, omitted. Special. 1. Setting up 2 illusion scenes. 2. 5 senses control illusion. 3. Spiritual Orb. 4. Illusionary Transformation, extended, real illusion, minimizing secret technique. Suhao went down to the last column again. As expected, it was similar to the dazed crow. Evolutionary pathway. Silkworm Baby 3 Reverie Butterfly Fairy Pitch Black, not unlocked. 3 Intelligence points to search for advancement direction. Suhao had expected this. He immediately used 3 intelligence points to unlock the opportunity to understand the advancement plan. Ding! A pleasant prompt sounded. Countless dark outlines expanded on the interface. Advancement direction. 1. Illusionary Evolution, Compatibility, 98%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 2. Cloud Dream Evolution, Compatibility 98%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 4. Spiritual Evolution, Compatibility 82%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 7. Light Evolution, Compatibility 76%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 9. Fallen Evolution, Compatibility 50%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. The fill-in-the-blank question is back again. At the area, fill in Butterfly's advanced evolved form. Chapter 227, Training Ability. 9 types of advancement direction options. But Suhao discovered the blind spot. In the direction of the dazed crow's advancement, there's fallen evolution, and it's also on Butterfly's advancement list. Could it be a universal evolution? At the moment, the Union has sufficient theoretical support. The more commonly used advancement evolution pathways are giganticization evolution, elementalization evolution, and polymer evolution, etc. Among them, the theoretical value of the giganticization evolution is the highest. Su Hao pondered. There was a flaming body evolution in the direction of the dazed crow's advancement. That should be elementalization evolution, but elementalization requires different elements to target different attributes. It requires a completely different theory. If the dazed crow is purely fire element evolution, its compatibility may only be 70 to 80%, but with the flaming body evolution its compatibility was 91%. And for giganticization evolution, it was also named as such in the list for the dazed crow, and it had a 50% discount. The giganticization theory developed by that Grandmaster Sprite cultivator is really strong. Su Hao was sincerely impressed. Naturally, there was no giganticization evolution in the direction of Butterfly's advancement. It was not compatible with it. But there was fallen evolution. Is it just that the names are similar, or is the core similar? If fallen evolution was also a universal evolution, then its value would be great. The theory of the plan could be applied to other sprites, not only to Butterfly. Su Hao had the urge to write a thesis, but he calmed down very quickly. At the moment, he didn't have the conditions to research advanced evolution. There were no suitable sprites in his hands either. With his level, it wasn't enough to borrow advanced extraordinary level and pseudo-monarch level sprites for research. It was a waste to spend intelligence points on it for the time being. Slowly, there was no hurry. He noted it in his mind first. Butterfly evolved, broke through, and displayed its power. In the blink of an eye, the whole morning was almost over. Heavenly King Wu exclaimed and said. In the blink of an eye, I didn't expect you to also have become a master-level sprite trainer. Time really passed. So fast. Do you still remember what the teacher said at the start of school? Heavenly King Wu was referring to the principal. Of course, Su Hao remembered. After he became a master-level sprite trainer, he would go to the New World and learn from the principal. You should have guessed by now. There are 2 New World entrances owned by our Whale Island University. One of them leads to the Dragon Court Lake area, while the other is very dangerous and poses a great threat to our world. Teacher and his sprite are stationed there long term. At first, I thought that I would have to wait until the second semester of your second year to let you come into contact with those things, but I didn't expect. Instantly, it messed up Heavenly King Wu's plan of having a vacation. Then, he thought about Su Hao. He had only been enrolled for less than a year, but he was already a master level. A 19-year-old master level. His junior wasn't the youngest, but it was possible that Su Hao was the fastest one to become a master level since contracting his sprites. Less than 2 years. This was too unexpected. After a pause, Heavenly King Wu continued, but the management of that entrance is even stricter, with a fixed entry and exit time. For the time being, don't leave the school, familiarize yourself with your sprites, and master some extraordinary level abilities as soon as possible. I'll bring you there after I've arranged things. Well, you have to be mentally prepared. Su Hao nodded. Lakeview Court, Villa. Gurgle gurgle, gurgle. Butterfly hugged its cell phone and danced in the air, very satisfied. It was extremely satisfied with its final form, Gurgle. If it became smaller, it could stay on Su Hao's head. It became bigger, and it could use its hands to play with the computer and cell phone. Perfect Gurgle. It looked at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa, where the big fat bear was pointing behind and crying. It was saying, "Please carry me in the game, please play together sob." Butterfly felt that it was fine. After evolution, it wanted to dominate gank your sprite commandeering heart. Stop for a moment, let's test out the extraordinary level elemental control ability first. Su Hao appeared. Butterfly thought it was fine. The big fat bear made a bitter sob sound, but it didn't dare to retaliate. It scratched its head and looked at its other friends in the villa. Flaming Spirit Crow, pass. Water Unicorn Beast, pass again. It looked at the bright night spirit emitting a lustrous white light, and its gaze moved down. It had hands. This little friend is good. Howl, howl, howl. Electric Bear pointed at the computer room and sent out an invitation. Phew phew. Upon hearing this, the bright night spirit pointed at itself and asked weakly. It saw the big fat bear patting its chest, as if it was saying, "Little sister, come with me, I'll give you some points." So Bright Night Spirit went to the computer room of the villa and found a seat. It looked in front of itself. Quart? What and what, phew-phew. Outside the villa, in the garden. Butterfly's tiny body flew around like a little bee. Gurgle. Su Hao looked around. There were a lot of flowers and plants growing in the garden. There were people in charge of the dormitory area. Every once in a while, they would take care of the flowers and plants in front of the villa. It's just nice for me to use it to test the control of the wood element. Elemental control was an instinct for extraordinary level sprites. At this moment, the interface of Butterfly showed. Wood Elemental Control LV1, Illusion Elemental Control LV1. Two types of elemental control was the advantage of having dual attributes. Go, Butterfly. Gurgle. Butterfly was in the middle of the garden. Its hands slowly stretched out, its small white palms aimed at the front, left and right. There was no particularly big commotion. But in Su Hao's eyes, the surrounding lawns, flower beds, potted plants. Countless plants grew wildly. The loose and soft lawn grew rapidly, reaching the height of calves, thighs, and waist. Flowers bloomed one after another, the fragrance of flowers spread everywhere. Several small trees and brown branches were also extending and growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was like a miracle. This was the extraordinary level. Its power was completely above elite level. Su Hao praised. But in the blink of an eye, he discovered that the originally lush and flowery little garden had become a mess in the blink of an eye. The lawn grew too fast, like weeds. Flowers of all colors bloomed everywhere, but because there was no plan, they were lumpy and weren't beautiful either. Butterfly, who was hovering in mid-air, held its chin with both hands and sank into deep thought. Butterfly tried both wood elemental control and illusion elemental control. It mainly studied illusion elemental control. With the help of elemental manipulation, Butterfly replicated the pavilions in the Mirage Dragon ruins a few days ago. It unfolded like an illusion and enveloped the villa in the blink of an eye. It was completely different from when it could only transform a few colorful flowers at the elite level. Very good, I'll set a small goal first. In 5 days, achieve minute control over the free elements, completely master the power, fill the energy in the spiritual orbs, complete the 3 daily improvements, and then. Butterfly nodded slightly, then widened its eyes, and finally slowly typed out a question mark. It flew back to the villa, opened the fridge, and grabbed a bottle of fairy happy water with its psychic power. It flew in front of it and opened it with a snap. Suddenly, it heard a sound coming from the computer room. With a flash, it flew towards the room where 5 desktop computers were installed. It saw a big fat bear sitting in front of a particularly large computer seat. Its eyes were red as it slapped the special keyboard until it trembled. Butterfly glanced at the screen. 1-8-3. Then, it glanced at the Bright Night Spirit's computer next door. 0-19-0. It was silent for a moment before decisively and quietly flying out of the room. It's 3 against 7, it can't get the championship position, gurgle. Chapter 228, Butterfly's Battle Power. Butterfly had still completed its small goals within 5 days, proving that the plan Su Hao had formulated was very perfect and very suitable for the sprite itself. In another 10 days, he would use the upgraded plan to nurture and cultivate it. During this period, Su Hao bought a lot of resources and used them all on Butterfly. In 15 days, he had spent 8,000 credits. Su Hao spent money crazily, but only extraordinary levels could make him spend so much money to absorb all the treasures he exchanged. To this day, Butterfly had already completed its initial development after evolution. Early in the morning, Su Hao arrived at the garden in front of the villa. Looking around, many of the originally exuberant flowers and plants had already withered. That was because after losing the nourishment of wood element spiritual energy and the limited nutrients of the soil, the lush flowers and plants couldn't be sustained. Most of them withered, making the whole garden look even more desolate. Su Hao also felt defeated. Thinking that Butterfly no longer needed to try on innocent flowers and plants, he used his wristband to send a message to the dormitory manager. He stopped caring. He looked at the 5 energetic sprites in front of him. Today, we have something important to do. Are you confident in challenging the 2nd and 3rd levels of the real illusion? Howl, howl, howl. The big fat bear stood up and raised its palms, being the first bootlicker. The dumb unicorn then expressed its stance. Recalling that it had been tortured by the illusion sprites thousands of times, it raised its head and shouted loudly, "Nay!" Gurgle. Phew-phew. Phew-phew. Butterfly and the gentle bright night spirit agreed. Then, it was silent for a few seconds. Su Hao looked at the dazed crow, who was in a daze, and used the stare of a sprite trainer. Stare. Squawk. The stupid crow tilted its head and hurriedly flapped its wings, making crisp flapping sounds. Yeah, let's go. In the special training camp area, the Crystal Tower. Su Hao arrived early and there happened to be an empty spot. He took out his student card and slapped it down very generously. Give me 10 hours of real illusion. The staff member looked up at him, then lowered his head and looked up again. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. After thinking about it, he still said, "Student, for the sake of the safety and health of sprites, don't exceed 3 hours in the illusion. The longest you can use it is only 5 hours. That's the rule." Su Hao was rendered speechless. All right. After all, he was an easygoing person. Thick fog shrouded the spacious crystal room. In the blink of an eye, he appeared on the vast grassland again. Butterfly, what do you think? After it broke through, it had been busy improving its foundation. This was the first time it came here since. Instantly, the 2 antennae shook. It was extending its perception. Its body had already recovered to its normal size. Its eyes were closed tightly, and its spiritual force spread out, spreading in all directions with the help of illusion elements. Gurgle. It shook its head slightly. Then, it controlled the table tennis-sized orbs to hit the ground. Boom! Smoke and dust pervaded the air. The place where it was hit quickly cracked, and collapsed visibly. But no mystification appeared. Looks like the level of the Crystal Tower illusion is much higher than the Mirage Dragon illusion. Butterfly can only sense that something is wrong. It's still far from cracking it. On the prairie, the few sprites warmed up. Su Hao took the opportunity to glance at the data of the few sprites again. At the moment, Butterfly returned to the top position. It had just entered the extraordinary level. It was responsible for being the team's battle power, beauty, support, first investigator, second researcher. The dazed crow sat firmly on the second throne, at the limit of the elite level. It had improved slightly since the start of school, and the duration of the sun form had increased by a few seconds. There was no ranking for the time being for Big Fat Bear and Dumb Unicorn. Firstly, the Big Fat Bear had a lot of talent and improved rapidly. Now, it was also at the intermediate to advanced elite level. Its thunder element was also effective against the Dumb Unicorn. The Dumb Unicorn was not easy to beat. But secondly, Dumb Unicorn was his mount after all, and it had a special bloodline. Its future potential was high, and its use was not only in battle power. In terms of development, according to the estimation of a perfect level cultivation plan, it would reach the limit of elite level in half a month to a month. It was hard to say who was stronger. Fufu, Fufu, Fufu. The bright night spirit was steadily at the bottom. The sprites finished warming up and their conditions were excellent. Seeing this, Su Hao got onto the dumb unicorn and started to challenge. Two voices rang in his mind. Please choose the round, the first/second round. Last time, he died in the second round. Su Hao chose the second round. In just a moment. Gurgle. Butterfly became serious. It flapped its wings and flew at the front. It sensed the appearance of the enemy. Extraordinary Ground Wolf, 1. It didn't take long before it appeared in Su Hao's vision with 9 elite-level limit followers. They surrounded him in a semicircle. He sat on the back of the horse and didn't move at all, like one who didn't change one's expression even when facing thousands of soldiers. Cough, cough. Butterfly flew forward. Its eyes lit up. Spiritual force judgment, complete abuse. The ground wolf, which was running at the front, suddenly staggered. Its eyes were turbid as it crazily bit and clawed at one side. Countless sharp earth spikes emerged from the grassland, and the gravity enveloped it as if it was about to crush the air. But it was all empty. Empty. It was empty. The ground wolf with a huge body was breathing heavily. Its surroundings were in a mess, and the ground was cracked. And on its body, wounds suddenly appeared one after another. He could only vaguely see threads appearing in the air and passing by at an extremely fast speed. Before they disappeared again. It was the unique skill string shot, a sharper improved version. Under Butterfly's illusion, illusionary transformation ability, and the support of the Mirage Energy Orb, it instantly became an invisible blade. After only holding on for more than a minute, the extraordinary level ground wolf collapsed. At this moment, the other elite-level ground wolves and goat horn immortals were trapped in the illusion and froze. After Butterfly dealt with the leader ground wolf, the illusion activated, and the sprites fell one by one. Done, it's too damn easy. As expected of a sprite cultivated by me. Su Hao sat on the dumb unicorn. From the start to the end, he didn't move at all. The enemies fell. Sigh, lonely. The 10 fallen sprites turned into light dots and disappeared inch by inch a few minutes later. At the same time, an illusion prompt sounded. The third round began. Su Hao sat up straight and looked ahead, observing with the naked eye. There were only 3 sprites. A stone giant more than 8 meters tall. A clear jade lotus that was emitting light all over. And a muscular and intimidating punching king kangaroo. They were all taller, stronger, and more imposing than the common elite levels. 3 extraordinary levels. 1 attack, 1 defense, and 1 support. They formed a triangular battle formation. Step by step, they inched closer. Boom! 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 Every step the stone giant took caused the ground to tremble, forming layers of air waves that rolled over. The clear jade lotus shone with light, giving every sprite a misty halo. It resisted the invasion of external spirit powers. Gurgle. Okay, let's stall the clear jade lotus. Butterfly flew forward and scattered countless pink light dots. At the same time, under the envelopment of the illusion, it didn't choose to directly control it. Instead, it constantly provoked the emotions of the enemy sprites, especially the punching king kangaroo that acted as the attacker. In just a moment, the eyes of the punching king kangaroo turned red. It was as if the union of sprite trainers had knelt for 20 rounds, and was even scolded badly by the elegant and easy-going opponent. It roared angrily, its legs expanded and exerted force, blasting away a circle of air waves. The figure of the punching king kangaroo turned into a straight line and appeared in front of Butterfly in the blink of an eye. It threw a punch, retracted it, and threw another. In just a second, dozens of punches landed on Butterfly's weak body like raindrops. Its petite body exploded directly. Countless butterflies that were emitting sparkling light scattered in all directions and were shattered by the punching king kangaroo. It kept throwing punches. The bright yellow wind from its punches created holes in the surrounding grassland, but even though the butterfly was gone, it kept throwing punches. It was like it had gone crazy. A few hundred meters away, the clear jade lotus started spinning, and a beam of light appeared from the sky. Suddenly, an even more dazzling light appeared. Unique skill extreme day. The bright night spirit released a dazzling light. It was equivalent to having no destructive power against them, but it interfered with the support ability that the clear jade lotus relied on to cast the light beams. In front of him was blazing white. The next moment, the hazy shadow of the maze shrouded the stone giant, whose resistance to illusion was extremely poor, and was completely isolated. As for Su Hao, he led the other sprites and surrounded the clear jade lotus. Above, under the sun form, the dazed crow slashed out its strongest attack. On the left, the electric bear turned into a huge thunder meatball and threw out a self-sacrificing bump. The dumb unicorn also let out a neigh as it gathered a few water dragons and helped a little in attack. Bright night spirit, phew 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 phew. In just 3 minutes, the punching king kangaroo fell. In another 3 minutes, the stone giant fell. In the last 3 minutes, the dazed crow flaming feather form was almost unable to maintain itself anymore. The clear jade lotus opposite it similarly looked very miserable. Butterfly flapped its wings and flew over. Countless illusory threads appeared. Sea serpent energy was injected into it and turned into reality. Under the control of illusion elements and spirit power, it pulled forcefully. After decapitating the last head, butterfly, 3-0-0. Dazed crow, 0-0-1. Big fat bear, as above. Dumb unicorn, as above. Su Hao, as above. Bright night spirit, 0-0-0. Butterfly obtained the MVP and carried the team, achieving the final victory. Gurgle. Its body shrank, and flew above Su Hao's head very tiredly, sinking. Your illusion took 56 minutes. The remaining time has already been transferred back to your card. Su Hao took the student card, thanked him, turned around and walked out. Butterfly, who was lying on top of his head, was no longer tired. The consumption of energy in the real illusion had no effect on reality. Its eyes were wide open as it recalled its gains from the battle just now. Su Hao sighed again. Impressive. It's a pity that the school's research on the Crystal Tower is limited. It has only developed the challenge function. There are no individual practice modes, battle modes, limitless modes, paywall modes, high-level experience modes, etc. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left after only 56 minutes. At this point, it was still early. Su Hao stood outside the Crystal Tower, looking at the clear blue sky, thinking. Junior Su Hao. He came back to his senses and turned to look. The one who called him was a tall and slender female senior with long black hair. Her looks were 85 plus, so he instantly recalled the female senior was from the special training camp. Senior 10. Junior, are you here to watch the school team practice too? Seeing his dazed and cute face, which was both handsome and adorable, Senior 10 blushed slightly. She explained, it just so happens that today, the main substitutes of the school team are going to carry out the team battle exercise before the league. She looked at the time and invited, it's going to start soon. Junior, let's go together. Chapter 229, Challenging the School Team Substitute. The school team's team battle exercise area was behind the special training camp. According to Senior 10, the high school league was a battle between teams of 5 people and 5 sprites after all. Their cooperation was definitely not as good as the cooperation with their own sprites. Without targeted cultivation, it was also very difficult to construct a team battle system. Therefore, the selection of team members focused more on the battle power of the ace sprite, and not its attributes and types. But we have to understand what secret manuals and battle methods other sprites have. Only then will there be team battle drills. Senior Tan said, today is the first team battle exercise after the school team's member selection. Did anyone else substitute the members of the school team? Senior Tan said, yes, yes. The 8th place Luo Liwen and the 10th place Tang Jiangxia were both replaced. The one who defeated Luo Liwen was a senior who was originally ranked 17th. He was a dark horse and won with an obvious advantage. I heard from Captain Wang Qi of the school team that senior's ace is one of the best among the substitutes. Besides, he's only in his 3rd year of university. He has the ability to compete for the position of the next school captain. She had personally witnessed the battle of that senior's rise. As she spoke, she got excited. She admired that senior very much. It was just that his looks weren't that good. Otherwise, she would become a fan. As they spoke, they walked out of the building complex and saw a vast field with a dent in the front. On the left and right sides of the field, it could be seen from afar that each side had a tower, which was similar to the field in the challenge segment. It was just that there were no complicated terrain. Instead, it was hard ground, special crystal walls, and so on. It was extremely resistant to attacks. Even with extraordinary destructive power, it couldn't leave too many traces on the ground. From afar, Su Hao saw a group of people gathered outside the venue in front. There were many people who looked vaguely familiar to him. They were members of the special training camp. And a few instructors. They surrounded it, as if they were looking at something. Under Senior Tan's call, the two squeezed forward. Su Hao saw a large sand table behind the crowd. Yellow sand flowed, forming forests, mountains, and a few vivid and lifelike sprites. Surprisingly, it was a real sand table created by a certain sprite with its sand control ability. That is, we're doing a strategic simulation. The one who spoke was Zhang Zaihoki. He saw Su Hao and said, look, the sprites below are familiar with their battle companions, while us sprite trainers are in charge of considering strategic tactics. Su Hao looked over. The most eye-catching places on the sand table were the 2 towers in the field, but other than that, circles were drawn on the other 4 spots. Some had flags inserted, while others didn't. It was like a chess game. Zhang Zaihoki said, in a league battle, it's very difficult for the sprites to cooperate perfectly, but tactical arrangements are more important than team battles. This is because the battle rules aren't simple. You can't win just by eliminating the enemy. Did you see the tower and those few circles? The tower represents the core base. Every tower has a gate. Once their tower is invaded, that side will be defeated directly. But unless the disparity is too great, as long as there are sprites guarding the door, it's difficult to break in. He paused for a moment. Those areas with circles around them represent resource points. Every minute that they occupy a resource point, that team can gain an additional point, if they completely defeat an enemy sprite, and gain an additional 100 points. However, the duration of the competition is only 3 hours, and the winner is usually determined by score. Do you understand now? Su Hao understood right away. Unless the disparity was too great, who would be in charge of guarding the tower and who would snatch the resource points? It was either teaming up or splitting up. There had to be a suitable strategy. Tactics would also have to be developed based on the characteristics of the sprites. But he still felt that the rules were a little complicated. He was used to either being reckless or hiding. That's actually a simulation of the real battlefield situation. The real situation. I almost forgot that you're only a first-year student. Zhang Zaihoki looked up at the sky and laughed. Maybe you'll have to wait until next year, or until you reach master level before you come into contact with it. You'll know then, ha ha ha. He laughed dryly and changed the topic. Suddenly, he was stunned. His eyes gradually widened as he stared at the sprite above Su Hao's head in shock. You, that sprite. it's extraordinary level. His voice was a little dry, and there was thick disbelief in it. How long had it been? A while ago, he was just thinking that it would be such a pity if Junior Suhao's Reverie Butterfly couldn't evolve and could only stay at elite level for the rest of his life. But who would have thought? A contemplative look appeared on his face. He recalled that a few days ago, he had heard someone discussing the discovery of another new evolved form. It seemed to be called Butterfly Fairy is the evolved form of Reverie Butterfly. Yes. Suhao suppressed the urge to laugh wildly with his hands on his hips. He wasn't a big boss yet, he couldn't be complacent. He changed his mind and asked, "By the way, Senior, can I still challenge the members of the school team now?" Zhang Zihoki thought about it. "You have to rank in the top 30 of the special training camp." Suhao waved his wristband. Regarding his ranking, after passing the third level of the Real Illusion and 500% completion of the exploration of the ruins, even if he only completed one mission assessment, his ranking had risen to 19th place in one go. The elite of the special training camp. Zhang Zihoki. Because the school team has already started the team battle exercise, so, you have to win with a relatively obvious advantage. I estimate. Let's ask the instructor. In fact, he didn't have high hopes for Suhao. After all, that Butterfly Fairy had broken through to the extraordinary level only recently. As for the school team, even if they were only the trump cards of the substitutes, all of them had spent at least a few months at the extraordinary level. The accumulation was different. But he also thought that Junior Suhao was improving rapidly. There was still a long time until the high school league will start. When the league starts, Junior Suhao's strength would definitely increase greatly. It wasn't impossible for him to surpass the substitutes. Instructor Ma, what do you think? According to the rules. Instructor Ma looked at Suhao. You can issue a challenge, but you have to have an obvious advantage in order to replace the substitutes. Besides, the opportunity can only be given a month before the league at the latest. Suhao's eyes moved up and glanced at Butterfly. He asked Butterfly what it thought. Butterfly made a fist with its little hand and raised it high. Gurgle. During the intermission of the team battle exercise, Instructor Ma called someone over. One of the school team substitutes, Zhou Ming's. The target that Suhao was preparing to challenge. What, you want to challenge me? At first, he was surprised, but after understanding the situation, he sneered in his heart. A sprite that had just reached extraordinary level. Yes, its battle power was extraordinary, but which Whale Island University student's sprite had ordinary battle power? He wanted to teach his naive junior in front of him to be a down-to-earth sprite trainer. Zhou Ming's had a senior-like warm smile on his face. He stretched out his hand and said, "Please." The two rode their flying sprites and landed on the empty field, facing each other from afar. The atmosphere was tense, and it could break out at any moment. Outside the field, some students were observing the sand table or admiring the handsome guys and beautiful girls, when they suddenly realized that someone was going to be challenged again. The person challenging is... Hey! Junior Suhao. The black-haired and tall senior Tan had just shifted her gaze to the other handsome guys. After comparing, she still felt that Junior Suhao was more handsome, but when she turned around, she discovered that her junior had disappeared. After looking around, she saw her junior appear in the field. Moreover, as a challenger. Shock, the handsome Junior Suhao is actually a low-lying master-level sprite trainer. The tall senior looked at that figure in the distance and was immediately smitten. On the empty field, Suhao was riding on the back of the dumb unicorn. He looked towards the distant figure. Butterfly Fairy's abilities were mysterious and unknown, while the data of Zhou Ming's ace sprite had already been analyzed by the interface. He had told Butterfly everything. The intel of both parties was not on the same level at all. Suhao apologized in his heart, but he analyzed it with his own abilities, so he felt at ease. There was no need to feel guilty about fighting for fame, status, and resources. Well, who asked Butterfly and the others to improve so quickly? Even if they don't earn money, they won't be able to last with tens of thousands of credits. Chapter 230, Direct Confrontation. Whoosh whoosh. The wind howled. Butterfly flew out from his head and flew forward 100 to 200 meters. Its body also returned to a height of 1.2 meters from the size of a palm. Its emerald green hair fluttered in the wind, butterfly wings flapped, bringing light dots. On the opposite side was also a wood element sprite. It had a humanoid body, its height was similar to that of an adult male, its limbs were slender, made of leaves. It was wearing a long robe made of leaves that was dragged all the way to the ground. That leaf robe, like Butterfly Fairy's butterfly group, Elephant General's stone hammer, and Golden Armored Overlord's battle sword, was a part of the sprite itself. But it also looked like a physical object, fluttering in the wind, making ruffling sounds. But the most eye-catching thing was its hair that looked like an exploding head. Its white and thick hair spread outwards. From afar, it looked like a heavy and light person, as if it could collapse at any moment. Sprite, young Master Cattail. It evolved from a dandelion into an elegant dandelion, and then into its final form. Young Master Cattail is of the wood element attribute, but its battle method revolves around the sea of dandelion flowers, somewhat similar to illusion. Illusion, influenced from the spiritual level. Zhou Ming's young Master Cattail interfered from the realism level. It was a fake illusion. Butterfly had the ability to restrain the other party. Besides, although Butterfly is only at the extraordinary level, after absorbing the 800 credits worth of nutritional supplements, its basic attributes are already not inferior to young Master Cattail. The only shortcoming is her battle experience at the extraordinary level. But that was also the purpose of Su Hao's challenge. He wanted to increase its experience. At this point, they were not on the official battlefield. The two towers on the left and right were too far away, and there was no sprite commandeering pillar. Su Hao rode on the dumb unicorn and stepped into the air. On the opposite side, Zhou Ming's was also riding an armored dragon hawk, looking down at the ground from high above. He looked at Butterfly Fairy and his brain kept working. No matter what methods it has, it definitely uses illusion as the foundation. Then I'll use the battle method of long-distance siege to guard against the invasion of the other party's illusion. Gazes, sounds, and smells could all be used by the enemy, causing one to fall into an illusion. But as long as one didn't look, listen, and maintain a distance, there wasn't much room to cast illusion. Zhou Ming's judged and quickly ordered. In that instant, young Master Cattail spread its arms, and its exploding hair kept fluttering. Countless white dandelions spread out and quickly covered the surroundings. Its figure immediately disappeared among the densely packed dandelions. Tactical Core, Dandelion Flower C. The dandelions started spinning, and the white fur was like metal spikes. With an ear-piercing screech, they flew out with a whoosh. It was the basic unique skill Feather Needle. Improved version, Dandelion Feather Needles. When Butterfly saw this, it also considered fighting back with ordinary unique skills. It thought of Hurricane, but then it saw those dandelion fur that were sharp on the outside, like hidden weapons. If it used Hurricane against enemies, it would have fallen into a trap. Its butterfly wings shook slightly, countless emerald green light dots flew out like raindrops. Granule Machine Gun. The more powerful version. Granules and dandelions collided halfway. Boom, 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 countless smoke and dust exploded. It was densely packed. Neither the dandelions nor the granules could penetrate the other party's defense line and intercept each other. The smoke and dust from the explosion formed a line, separating the battlefield. The people outside the field could only see the two sprites attacking, raising countless white and green dots of light, which exploded one after another. Rumbling sounds came one after another. Ordinary unique skills also possessed terrifying destructive power. This was extraordinary level. They look evenly matched, but young Master Cattail's feather needles are used with the dandelion flower sea battle method. The numbers are gradually increasing, while Granule Machine Gun requires Butterfly Fairy to use it herself. In another 10 seconds, young Master Cattail will have the complete upper hand. A big boss student said. Naturally, Su Hao could also tell that. Even without him saying anything, Butterfly had already switched tactics on its own. It flapped its butterfly wings again, spraying not emerald green light dots, but countless fist-sized light butterflies, flapping their wings and scattering. At this moment, without the obstruction of the granules, dandelions spun and gradually occupied most of the field. As far as the eye could see, densely packed dandelions came crashing towards them like white waves. Su Hao understood the other party's plan. As long as the sea of dandelion flowers covered the entire field, young Master Cattail would have the absolute home field advantage. No matter what methods it used, it would exhaust Butterfly. Of course, they weren't on a regular battlefield. There was still a large space for Butterfly to dodge to behind itself. But since they had challenged, they had to defeat their opponents fair and square. So, attack against attack. The luminous butterfly flew forward in a fan-shaped manner. Soon, it bumped into the dandelions flying towards it. But there was no explosion. The luminous butterfly passed by the dandelions as if it didn't exist and continued to fly forward. The students outside the arena could see the white waves crashing from left to right, but there was a pink luster in them as it advanced against the waves. The two different colors intertwined. Just as the white wave was about to swallow Butterfly Fairy, its body suddenly turned into countless butterflies that scattered in all directions. It completely integrated into the sea of dandelions. It disappeared. Are we under an illusion? No, illusions can't directly affect us sprite trainers. Where did it go? When did you use the method? Clone? Substitute? Zhou Ming's frowned. He was also thinking. After thinking for half a second, he gave an order in his heart. Fuse spirit power and seal those butterflies. But there were too many luminous butterflies, and young Master Cattail could only deal with them in batches. In an instant, the hair of some dandelions at the very front glowed slightly as they pierced towards the hundreds of butterflies that had just split from Butterfly Fairy. Like bubbles punctured by spikes, the luminous butterflies exploded with a pop, but the power on them also affected the dandelions. In an instant, the spinning dandelions dimmed and fell to the ground with a plop, before turning into pure spiritual force and dissipating in the air. Just like in the beginning, it was just that granules became the illusion butterfly, the two cancelling each other out. In just a moment, hundreds of illusion butterflies shattered and disappeared. Only the last illusion butterfly actually had a physical body. The specks of light it scattered made dandelions fall one after another. It's the main body, right? Zhou Ming's eyes widened. Some were nervous, while others sighed. A few seconds later, with a pop, the special illusion butterfly shattered, and a wisp of grey mist scattered. And the scene was still empty. Zhou Ming's then looked towards where young Master Cattail was. Just now, when their attention was attracted, the illusion butterfly at the front had already flown 2/3 of the distance past the white sea of flowers. He suddenly felt nervous and uneasy. Impossible, I won't lose. Eliminate all the illusion butterflies, its main body must be hidden inside. Young Master Cattail's strength was constantly outputting. Dandelions danced in the air as faint light blossomed. They collided with the illusion butterflies flapping their butterfly wings. Dandelions kept falling. Illusion butterflies kept disappearing. But there were also illusion butterflies that kept splitting up. Dandelions spread. Both parties were consuming energy. On one side was the application of special illusion abilities. On the other hand, it fused its spirit power into the sea of flowers, and its body of strength poured out continuously. There was no explosion. There wasn't even any sound. The audience could only see illusion butterflies shattering continuously, dandelions falling and disappearing. The silent collision lasted for 5 minutes. There were still quite a lot of dandelions. But the faint light on it clearly dimmed a little. It required 2 dandelions to consume 1 illusion butterfly. Young Master Cattail's spirit power was insufficient. The pink cloud slowly covered the white wave and pushed forward bit by bit. 10 special illusion butterflies formed an arrowhead and broke through the sea of flowers with irresistible force. 10 seconds later, the white dandelions were already sparse. And the illusion butterflies still of a certain scale. Cluster after cluster surrounded young Master Cattail. The scene froze. Su Hao rode his horse and walked in the air. He came to the front and looked at Zhou Ming's. His face was filled with unwillingness. After a few seconds, he lowered his head and said dejectedly, "I lost." He lost to a freshman. He lost to a newly extraordinary level sprite. Zhou Ming's left dejectedly. The students and instructors outside the field were silent for a moment, before an uproar broke out.